Nonsense in the chaos. Wicked witches. Trusting the unknown. Welcome to the Nonsense in the Chaos. I'm your host, Jolie Rose. I don't need to do much introduction to this week's conversation because it happens in the conversation, but I am here interviewing Jonathan Harris, who I met through the Pilgrimage for Peace, and everything about the work that he's doing just completely intrigued me right from the off, and the conversation just absolutely was everything I hoped it would be. So I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to get straight into the meat of it, and I can't wait for you to hear everything that Jonathan has to say. So without further ado, here is Jonathan Harris. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Jolie.
So, is there a name that you're known by as a church being?
As a church being, I go by Reverend Jonathan, but I'm very happy
Reverend
with
Jonathan,
I'm
excellent.
happy with John, if whichever works for you.
I like Reverend. I once, when you can buy a fake title, I once bought Reverend as a title. It was probably like 10 quid or something like that. But yeah, I bought Reverend Jolie Booth, which was my old surname. I just thought it sounded good.
Yeah, you can apparently. So I did research it, and it's not a legal. It's not a legal thing. So when you get those questionnaires when you join something, and it says, "Oh, you Mr., Miss, Mrs., Reverend." If you put Reverend, nobody's going to tell you off because it's not a real thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. I love that. I know someone who did that with Doctor. That everyone knows them now as Doctor, and they're not a doctor.
Yeah.
It's very good. Get a bit of gravitas. So we met recently on the pilgrimage.
Yes.
How did you end up coming along to the pilgrimage? Tell us a bit about the connection there.
I know two of your pilgrims, Francesca and Daniel, and I had been planning. We have a mutual friend who's has a few mobility issues, and he was wanting to come and see you guys on pilgrimage, and we were trying to figure out a way to do it. Unfortunately, we didn't plan it out, but I'd been in contact with Francesca and Dan, and they needed. I think you guys needed a lift to one of your places, Francesca's mum's, I think, and it's just up the road from me. So I just came up and we had a lovely drink, and I dropped you off at Francesca's mum after going round and round about 3 times for magical purposes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Was it the first ever roundabout?
It was the first ever roundabout. Yeah. So yes. I mean, if you come across the first ever roundabout, you've got to go around it a few times, haven't you?
Exactly. Work a bit of magic. And first of all, thank you so much for giving us a lift, because that's one of the things that's so incredible about doing the pilgrimages is people just these random acts of kindness that keep happening, and people being generous and going out of their way to come and help. So thank you, because that added to the magic of the pilgrimage, you coming and doing that for us.
Well, I was totally inspired by what you're doing. I think it was amazing to walk that far. I've done a few pilgrimages myself, but nothing on that scale. Yeah, I was staggered and slightly jealous as well that you were doing it.
You'll have to come next time. Yeah, it is an amazing thing to do, and it's just so powerful. It is so powerful. And it kind of blows me away each time I come back from one. It's almost like I said it as we were walking, that I've never given birth, but from what I've been told of giving birth, you forget how hard it was afterwards, and you remember it with this delusion of how lovely it was. And then you start doing it again and you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this again? And that's the same with pilgrimage, is that the whole time I was doing it, I was in pain. It's really hard. And you're like, oh my God, I forgot. I don't even remember this massive hill. Like, I remember before it and after it, but I don't remember the huge hill between those two amazing bits. And then you finish it, and it slowly settles into all the magic of it, which is what's happening to me at the moment. And it's all those magical moments and connections and things like meeting you, and Francesca's mum as well was absolutely incredible, and her house was amazing. Yeah, every single step has something incredible about it, and it works its magic on you for a long time. So how many pilgrimages have you done?
Well, they're not a pilgrimage quite like the pilgrimages you do with the walking. So when I started, I decided that the mountains of Britain must be put beneath the staff. So the staff is the holy object of the burn. All hail the staff. And so I think 2014 was the first one. Went Snowdon, then Scafell Pike, then Ben Nevis. I did that with my kids, and they moaned every step of the way. But of course, now they look back on it, they're like, "Oh, when are we going to do that again?" It's like you say, you forget the pain of it and the fear of it as well. And then I also did a sort of group pilgrimage with my friend Daisy Campbell. She organised the CERN to CERN pilgrimage, which Dan was on, which was not. There was a little bit of walking involved, but it was a coach across Europe from Cernobis, the Cernobis giant, which is the chalk figure carved into a hill in Dorset, to the CERN laboratory in Switzerland and in Geneva. And we did various magical things on the way, and we did a big magical action at the centre of CERN. And that was, so that was quite an epic pilgrimage. And also to Carl Jung's house in Bonningen. We ended up there. And then since then, and I've got kind of little pilgrimages that I'm kind of my lifetime, the thing that I've set myself to do for the rest of my life now. I've only done a couple, and I can't believe I've only done a couple. The first one that I did at the beginning of this year was to Ely Cathedral. So I go to cathedrals and churches in a particular pattern, which I won't reveal, to burn money there. And had started at Ely Cathedral. I couldn't have wanted for a better start, and I went with my friend Sarah, and we took communion with the Bishop of Ely there. I'd never been to a Catholic communion before, but what a venue. my goodness.
Ely's so amazing as well. It's such a richly historical, magical place. It feels so thick with atmosphere. What an incredible place to start. So talk about the Church of Bern. Tell us about this.
So the Church of Bern, I started burning money, as you do, in 2007. And so money has been a fascination throughout my whole life, really. I'm a graduate of the London School of Economics. I went there to study money, really, but economics doesn't really consider money that deeply. So I quickly learned how frustrating that was, that nobody really thinks about money. So I started burning in 2007. And originally I had what I called a money burning day, which was the 23rd of October every year. 23rd because it's 23, magical number 23. October because most crashes happen in October. So it's a kind of financial high point or low point, depending on your perspective. And I kept going every year, trying to figure out what it was I was doing and what it meant. It was immediately apparent to me, even at the very first burn. And I didn't have a preconception in my head about what it was I was doing. And it was immediately apparent that this was a ritual and it was a sacrifice. And I started, and then that's basically, since that point, it's been an exploration of the meaning of that, if there is any meaning to it, and its effect on me and its effect on people who burn. So anyway, so to cut a long story short, so I did it for a few years. 2015, I did the ritual for the first time with somebody else involved in the ritual, so two people burning money together. And I ritualized it a bit more, and that completely messed with my head. That was completely amazing. And I was like, wow, this is really powerful stuff. Me doing it on my own, trying to overthink it and stuff is one thing, but doing it two people together and also making something of a pilgrimage to do it. We walked into the woods and we set stuff, so we put effort into it. And then I did that, which blew my mind. The following morning, I woke up and there was an email from the place called the Cube Cinema in Bristol. And they said, would you come to Bristol to give us permission to burn money? And they were having a KLF night there. There was 175 people there. In November, I went there. And it felt like a very magical time. So in between the August the 23rd burn in 2015, and the Cube Cinema, which was in November 2015, I wrote my book called The Money Burner's Manual in that 3-month
Wow.
period. I've been writing it for ages and writing and stopping and writing and stopping, and I just managed to get my teeth into it and wrote this book. And then just stuff kept happening, and I kept meeting people, and it ended up a copy of The Money Burner's Manual found its way to Daisy Campbell. She was very keen to do something theatrical with it. So we did I think it was 2016, we did our first event at the Cockpit Theatre in London. So the Cockpit Theatre is London's sort of only purpose-built theatre in the round. So the seats are all around. You've got a performance space on the floor. It is built for ritual. It's just amazing. You couldn't want a better space. So we did that in 2016, and each year then after that, the director of the Cockpit was like, "Do you fancy coming back and doing the same sort of thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And gradually I started really enjoying theatre and producing theatre, and Daisy would direct it, and I would pull in different people and think about different ways of structuring it. And eventually, by 2019, I'd figured out that this was a church, and it was a church service. Church of Bern was born slightly before that, but that was really it's the genesis of it. And so in 2019, we had a synod, we had a service, and we had a ritual, and that was the structure that we've kept. The synod, we were lucky enough to get the late, great David Graeber along to talk about money and its meaning and that sort of stuff, and we had other brilliant guests. And the service, I found some wonderful musicians. We had a quite explicit sexual theme at the end, which I thought was just beautiful. And then we followed it with the ritual itself, which is money burning, which is obviously the key aspect of the evening. And obviously my mind was blown then. I know all I wanted to do with the rest of my life was just do that every night. And then so I was trying to do my best to make that happen. And then, of course, COVID came along, and I was like, bugger. So I did the first one again on the first weekend that I could when we came out of the COVID restrictions in 2021, and we did a 3-day event. And since we did the Secret Garden Party in 2022, but I just do it all the time. But it's a very expensive thing to do, not just in terms of the money that's burnt, but in terms of the production. But yeah, it's been and is being just a wonderful adventure and very magical. And yeah, I'm very happy doing Church of Bern. I'd spend every minute doing it if I could. Yeah.
It spoke to me so deeply because it is my deepest wound, money, and I'm always trying to come at it from different directions to see if it will change my relationship to it. And I've read amazing books about it, and I follow economists, and I'm interested in it as a structure and the history of it. But it was the moment when I heard about you burning it, something like my nervous system relaxed, and I was absolutely intrigued. So what's been the effect on some people with it happening? Like, what does it do when you actually hold these spaces?
The first thing to say is, and I always try to make this point, that this is not a small point, but it is literally a change in your relationship to money, because most people have never burnt money in their life and wouldn't even conceive of it. So when you do, you are literally doing that. And I think that's massively important. Even though you just think people say, yeah, but it's only a bit of polymer or a bit of paper or whatever. But it's then why would we be so concerned about it? And we have all sorts of, you can imagine we have some insanely aggressive reactions against us. We've been threatened with protests, and I've had people say all sorts of nasty things about it, which begs the question of why this symbol has such a power over us, and also then makes me even more convinced that we need to be dealing with it on an embodied or a visceral level as well as an intellectual level, and I think that's what we offer in Church of Bern. I think people generally people have a wide range of reactions, I would say, to money burning. That was particularly evident in the early days of what we were doing because there was no structure to it. And one of the first things I remember is talking about it just before we did a burnout festival in 2016, Festival 23. And I remember giving a little talk there beforehand, and somebody shouted out, "Treason!" And he was deadly serious as well. So obviously you had the reaction of, oh, what a waste, what terrible waste, and all that sort of stuff. When people burn, though, generally the thing is they say they feel lighter after it. I've had people giggling, people in the past. One guy I remember once, and this was a really instructive moment, he dipped it was a £5, he dipped it in the flame and said, "Fuck the Tories." And it just jarred, because it was just like, no, that's not where we're at with this ritual. This is not an overtly political statement. This is something about you and about your relationship with money. It's much deeper than that. So over the years, that service element I talked about, where we give sermons and we construct the atmosphere and the feeling of it and take people on a bit of a journey, I think that's contained those reactions to hopefully made them more intense and more personal, rather than people putting the anxiety and whatever on a symbol, it being, oh, I'm being anti-capitalist, anti-Tory, or whatever it is, and it makes it, hopefully it internalises it for them. That's the idea of what we do with the service element. So yeah, a wide range of reactions. Hopefully that when we do Church of Burn, hopefully we intensify and condense it into something that's felt within you rather than expressed about some outside entity. Sorry, that's a rather complex answer to.
No, that's, I love it. No, this it speaks to me on such a deep level, because when I say this is my deepest wound, I don't mean that flippantly. Like it goes right into my core. My relationship to money, it's the thing that freezes me in fright. You know, I've got bills and just sat on the edge of my bed not knowing how I'm going to pay it, and I've just been literally like a rabbit in headlights, and my body's gone into a frozen state, and so it's affected me on such a physical level. Yeah. And so the thought of burning it it's something in me that makes me go, you can't do that. But then also it's like, oh, wouldn't it be bloody great to do that? Like it wants to, my body wants to do it, because I can feel what the benefit would be, and it is the embodied feeling of healing that relationship somehow. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at my reaction to it. I mean, I'm intrigued at the kind of amounts people burn. I guess because it's a sacrifice, you want to make it, the bigger the sacrifice, the more powerful the connection to the divine element of it, I guess.
Well, to an extent, yeah. I mean, I talk about the sweet spot. You need to burn just enough so that you feel a little bit of pain, is the way we put it. But
yeah,
I think if you can burn too much, and there's a kind of numbness to it. When the KLF burnt £1 million, they talked about that, about there being no feeling to it. It just became bits of paper. I've burnt, I mean, it doesn't sound much now, but I burnt £50. I can't remember, was it 2011 or something like that? So it was a while ago. So it was worth a bit more back then. And I was very skint at the time. But I'd set myself a task of burning £50. I'd done 10, 20, and then I did 50. It was too much for me, and so it didn't really, if I'd burnt £30 or something, that would have been the sweet spot. So I think there's a sweet spot for every burn, and I think for most, it's not that difficult to get, because for most people it's like 20, 30 quid. If you're doing all right, if you've got a 30, 40 grand a year job, then 50 quid really is what you need to be doing. It's a good night out. That's the sort of the level, whatever your sin is, whether you like a bottle of whiskey or whatever, that's the amount you need to hurt yourself, I think. Yeah.
I love it. And in terms of the magic or spiritual element of that, do you mind sharing a bit about what that is to you, or what you're working with?
So I feel very blessed with how I've entered into magic, because I don't really know anything at all about tradition. I know a little about traditional magic and ceremonial magic. When I first started, I've been lucky enough to know some wonderful mages. And when I first started, I lent out to one of them, quite a well-known guy, and I said, how should I approach this ritual? And for whatever reason, he didn't get back to me. He didn't, which is unusual. And I don't know whether he never got me. I've never asked him. But it was a blessing, because I then just approached it in my own way. And with the ritual, the general thing I've learned from it is to get out of its way. So whereas I used to speak words during the ritual itself, I now really, I just rely on hand movements, and I have the staff, all hail the staff. So I've got everything I need, and people know what they're going to do. We do all that work beforehand. So we have a drone, 111 hertz drone, so it's quite overpowering for the sound. And it's just hands. So the magical stuff, I suppose I've been mostly influenced by chaos magic. How can I put it? I suppose I'm a rebel magician, really, is how I would put it. It's not that I don't think there's value in it for people who do magic. A lot of my friends are magicians who know of the different traditions of magic. But for me, I think if there'd been somebody in history who'd been a money burner, I would have studied them and thought, oh, you did it this way, but there isn't. So it's new ground, so it needs new. I think for me, it needs a new approach and a new magic to it, and that's what I've been exploring. It's a great joy to do. Just approach it with an open mind and with honesty. I think is the way I do it. And of course, the actual effects of it it comes through synchronicities, and the appearance of goddesses. Our goddess Maluzin has appeared through the magic of the ceremonies, and you don't take it too seriously, but also listen to it as well, because with Maluzin, the goddess of Church of Bern, I was ignoring the presence of this goddess, and the other people involved in the church was like, look, and so there was lots and lots of knock your hat off synchronicities coming in around. So of course then I had to admit that she was the goddess and then not ignore her, because otherwise there'd be problems.
Yeah, totally. What's her connect? Is there a connection between her and money? Why do you think she's here?
Well, the story is, I found a book. I can show you the book here. It's just here. So this book, can you see that? Okay, because I can't see my.
Yeah.
So it's a museum. It's the most famous exhibition of money art ever held. It was in 1978 in Dusseldorf, and they produced 2 catalogues. So any major artists of that time, Andy Warhol, whatever, Joseph Du Bois, all presented at this show. And they produced these 2 catalogues, and they had some of the great philosophers of the time wrote pieces on it. It was just such a huge thing. This is in German. I don't speak German, but because I'm a money nerd and I collect money stuff, I wanted these things, so I got them. And I couldn't figure out why that was on the front cover. I was like, what's the relationship with it? And by some cataloguing error, it wasn't mentioned in the actual catalogue either. So it was a bit of it was a bit of a mystery, and I posted it online, and within a few hours of me posting it online, so I was saying, does anyone know what this is? The Pitts Rivers Museum, one of my favourite museums in Oxford, posted the same motif on a brass plate that came from Nigeria. And I was like, I've never seen this image before. Why is it? So it came up, and then people started saying to me, this is the origination of the Starbucks logo. And I was like, oh, okay.
Ooh, right.
So, so it's a mermaid figure. Anyway, sorry, it's turning into a long story. So I got in touch with a guy called Horst Kunitsky, who was one of the curators of that exhibition back in 1978. He's an old guy now, or unfortunately he's passed now. And he told me, he said, what it was, the cover plate in a money chest, the old money chest. You'd open the money chest up, and they'd have a locking mechanism in the lid, and the cover plate covered the locking mechanism. And I was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he said he didn't know where the chest was now. So eventually I tracked down the chest to the German National Museum. They had it in their archive, so they had to hunt for it. So this all took ages. I paid them to take some pictures of it. They took some pictures of it. So I got some pictures, and there I have it. I was like, oh, okay. So there was this explicit mermaid figure, because she's revealing on this money chest. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I put it to bed in my head thinking I've solved that mystery. Then a while later, I think it was 6 months later, I went to the Bank of England Museum. And in the Bank of England Museum, the key area of the Bank of England Museum is this sort of glass plate. And behind the smoked glass plate, there is the founding charter of the Bank of England from 1694. So this is possibly the most important financial document in the world. Below that was laid across a chest was some tally sticks. The remainder of the tally sticks, the story of the tally sticks is that the present Houses of Parliament are built, that building is there, because in the building before they burnt a load of tally sticks as we changed from tally sticks to paper. So we used to record debts on tally sticks. So that's a stick that you used to slice into and it would record the debt. They had tons of tally sticks, but and they had a debate in Parliament about it, and they said, let's give the tally sticks to the poor, because then they're valueless now. Let's give them to the poor and they can use them as firewood. And they said, no, we can't do that because they are money. We think they're money, so we need to burn them. So they burnt them in the furnaces and the whole building caught light. This was in 1834, I think. Somebody might correct me on that. I think it was 1834. And it burnt the building down, and then that's why they built the building that's there currently. So the burning of the money tally sticks burnt down Parliament. That's the story I tell. And anyway, so the charter there, the tally sticks there, the chest, and on the lid of the chest, who's on the lid of the chest? There she is. Oh. So I was like, okay, so obviously at some point in the past, this figure, this mermaid figure, this explicit figure has been, and she's got a Catholic look to her. She's not really a Protestant Reformation thing. She's more ancient than Sheila na gig kind of vibe going on.
Yeah.
And I thought that's obviously a key element there of our past relationship with money. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and so she'd made her presence very much felt to me. Doing it at the Bank of England, that's the central point for all this. And she was right there, literally right in the centre of it all, by the tally sticks, by the founding charter. It's
amazing.
It's like,
that is amazing.
I mean, to ignore
and
her.
Starbucks as well.
Yeah.
Because aside from it being a coffee place, the name Starbucks is like the celebrity of money.
Exactly.
Like
well,
the star of.
So the thing about Starbucks is like if you were a goddess and you wanted your image all around the world to be worshipped. Yeah. I mean, she's smart. That's really clever.
She's doing well.
Yeah, she is. She's got more statues of her. So I've researched this, and when we did the Secret Garden Party, we presented all this information. There's these huge mermaid statues all around the world. She's like a goddess hidden in plain sight, if you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a wonderful thing, and it's not been a thing that I've thought, oh, that would be a great idea and pursued it. It's just come at me and presented itself to me. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, amazing. And I work at the Mermaid Tavern, which you noticed. So I'm going to put the cards up. If you enjoy this podcast, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jolie Rose. It's money, talking about money. It's interesting, asking for financial support. And yeah, I talk about money all the time, don't I? And it is something that's kind of awkward to do. And one hopes that it lands well. I want people to feel that it's worth them supporting me financially, because I know how hard it is at the moment. Times are hard, and for you to have the money to give me £7 a month or £3 a month, it feels weird because I'm not a charity, but I am an artist and I am putting things out into the world, and I do a lot of things for free, and I want things to be accessible. That's the way that I've always worked, especially when it comes to stuff to do with the inner world. It doesn't feel right for me to be charging huge amounts of money for it. I feel like I would rather share inner world stuff with you just for free, and then it be up to you what you want to give back. That you give me a donation because you want to. I tell you what my favourite book on witchcraft is, Tiffany Aching from the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. There's different characters that the Discworld follows. Some of the characters are the three witches. There's Tiffany Aching, and there's Nanny Og and Granny Weatherwax. I'm definitely a Nanny Og in the making. I'm not quite old enough to be her yet, but one day. But they're the best instructions I've ever read for witchcraft. And they talk about how a witch's job is to cut the nails of the old man. That's really what a witch should be doing. And all the crystals and Instagram version of things is there's, I can't remember what her name is, but there is a witch in the book that is like that, and she's all just pomp and special effects. She doesn't go and cut the old men's nails, and so she's not a proper witch, and that's why she never comes out on top when there's the competitions, or who gets the takeover from Granny Weatherwax and all that sort of thing. And Tiffany Aching is a hard-working nuts and bolts witch from the chalk, which is where I'm from. I mean, I'm from Essex originally, but Brighton, where I spent the last 20 years, and where I kind of cut my teeth as a witch, because Essex was somewhere where I had to flee because that's where the witch trials happened for a start. But I definitely felt very unsafe there. And then got to Brighton, where witches were attracted to congregate. We all realised that we were women that didn't like other women, and we'd all moved to Brighton, and we all moved there, and we all worked as artists, and we all supported each other, and there was the Arts Council, and there was people paying to come and see us, and it was this amazing place where I got to live as an artist for 20 years and had enough money to live off of from being an artist. And if ever I wasn't earning enough money, I had the social care system that caught me and gave me working tax credits and helped me out with council tax, and got cheaper travel, and I'd dip in and out of that, but mainly was self-sufficient, and mainly was paying tax back in, and was mainly able to live as an artist. But ever since the start of my career, I've always made my work accessible, and I've always liked working with things by donation, so that people invest in their inner world, and you make a choice as to what you're going to invest. So currently I'm offering tarot readings for the build up to New Year and Christmas, and that's by donation. I can do that as gift cards as well. And then we have the immersion weekend coming up, which is not going to be in bulk. I hoped it would be, but we can't make it work with the accommodation. So it's going to be a starer instead, which is the 20th, 21st, 22nd of March. And then also Creation Hibernation is about to start. If you can't afford to support me financially, that's not a problem at all, because people who can are. And if you're able to subscribe or follow any of my stuff, share it. Word of mouth is amazing. So all of that is also really useful. Do the reviews and stars and rate me on Spotify or wherever you're getting your podcast from. And that's also really great. So thank you ever so much. And now on with the show. If you have a look at them, and there'll probably be a lag, so you might not get exactly the card you were asking for. But if I put my cards up like this, and then I'll go like this with my finger, and you say stop.
Stop.
Very interesting. Okay, so this is the Prince of Discs, which would represent money. Discs is money. And he's there with the globe and with a kind of chariot being pulled by a bull.
Which is very money again, yeah.
Image. Yeah, exactly. I suppose there's slightly like the masculine, I mean, that's to me looks a bit like globalization, or the kind of patriarchal element to it. I mean, what that wants me to ask you is, what's your relationship to that part of money, to the kind of what we normally think of as money, the stock exchange and globalization and capitalism and all that kind of stuff? Like, how has it changed your relationship to it, or what's your relationship been with that?
It's a weird relationship, because I think I've been on the money coalface for 35 years or something like that. It's been my money's been my thing, and a lot of people have an interest in money, and they very soon decide what money is, and then they go look at the systems. And I think that's fair enough. I've been just looking at the same spot for forever, because I can't. It's a mystery, and I just keep going with it. When after the global crisis in 2008, there was a huge surge of money texts of people reconsidering money, because we had this global crisis. And then all of a sudden people started thinking, why are we like this about money? Why does money rule our world so much? And it was that moment when the stock markets fell, and all this money we had suddenly disappeared. And it's in that point of money of losing its meaning, we became fascinated by what it is and why it has that control over us. But again, I think since then, I think that and like yesterday is a good example, is we don't talk and think directly about money and our relationship to money and the power of this symbol. We don't think about it in spiritual, religious, cultural terms. We have this language of economics, which is like the Latin that the priests would use in the olden days, which very few people really understand. And I just don't, it's just doesn't, a lot of it just doesn't make any sense, whatever level, the higher level you go. There was a famous moment in the crash when one of the chief bankers said, we've experienced, I think it was a Sigma 4 moment, which is like a moment that's so rare that it happens like once in the life of a universe, and that was his explanation for the financial crash. That's obviously bullshit. It's just rubbish. And when you get to those levels of complexity of thinking, where people say, "Oh no, these normal people can't understand this stuff," that's just obfuscation. That's hiding it. That's the same sort of thing that the priests have done. I'm quite aggressively anti-economics at some point, and I think that they dismiss money, they dismiss our relationship to it, and I think that any economics that but look, to cut a long story short, David Graeber a few months before he died said we should chuck economics in the bin and start again, and that's really, I couldn't say any better. Because it's not gonna solve our problems, because you're thinking within the same ideology, and really that's, I suppose, what my mission is with Church of Bern, is to crack through that, break through that, and to think about the world in different terms. It's an impossible task. You got to try.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely have. Yeah, I'm in a really interesting position here on SARC because I'm in a community of 500 people. And within that community, we have billionaires and multimillionaires and millionaires and old money and new money and bin men and teachers and doctors and barmaids like me. And, literally the whole of humanity is in this one little tiny 1 mile long and 3 miles, 3 miles long and 1 mile wide island, and we're all hanging out with each other. And yesterday I was in the pub working behind the bar with a multimillionaire discussing with a left wing, he works in tech, so he's got some money, but he's not rich, who's an old hippie, and we were discussing the tax, because we've got to do something about the tax here. At the moment, it's a tax haven for the wealthy, but for people like me who are on £12 an hour, it's 630 quid it's just gone up to. Well, in the UK, I'd be paying half of that, and I would be getting free healthcare, a pension, I'd get benefits for, when times are hard. Here, I don't get any of that. And so I was trying to get across to this guy who's sitting there in the bar. He's a friend of mine. I got on really well with him. But just trying to get him to see the fact that for him, he's complaining about a few £1,000s when he's a multimillionaire. And yet you're taking what's nearly a month's wage from me. It's just like the percentages of what we're putting in aren't equal. And actually, this isn't a tax haven for someone on low earnings. But it's just an interesting situation to be in, because when I lived in Brighton for 20 years, I never came in contact with any of these people that are from completely different walks of life to me. Yeah. So it's quite a fascinating place to be. I'll put the cards up again. Tell me when to stop. Do you want the one right on the end? Okay. So this one, it's an interesting looking one. It's the 7 of Swords, and it's futility. And so swords is all about thinking, the mind. And so, yeah, this is kind of science, it's overthinking, and it's the futility. It's like, where do you feel like we're just banging our heads against a brick wall? And what needs to shift?
Yeah, it's just where we just went, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
I think it's about a rebalancing between the sort of rational and the cause-effect model, another model which is the sacrificial model, and I think we need to rebalance those. So one of the things that we do within Church of Bern is we try not to, sort of within services, try not to say, if you burn money, you will manifest, or anything like that. The idea is it's a sacrifice, and a sacrifice is not a transaction. Now, I know people might disagree with that, but they're wrong. I know, because I've done it. Yeah. But I think certainly my argument is that it's our relationship with money over the past couple of millennia that's led us to believe that everything is a kind of cause effect, is a transaction, that you give money, you get this, or you sacrifice a goat and the god gives you a good harvest or whatever. And that's like the way we look at stuff. But that isn't, certainly it's my experience, and in the philosophy of a guy called Georges Bataille, that's not what sacrifice is. Sacrifice is about loss. It's about giving up. And I think when you to get really serious about it in terms of sacrifice, the key thing when we talk about sacrifice is normally we talk about people sacrificing their lives in war. And you don't when you sacrifice, if you're unfortunate enough to die in a war, you don't know that your sacrifice is going to bring about the thing you're dying for. That's so you just sacrifice. That's it. And I think that's a really vital point. And I think it cracks open that whole thing that you're talking about. There is a futility to all this. There's a futility to the economic growth. It's growth into infinite growth on a finite planet. That the argument that Extinction Rebellion make. It's like, where is it taking us? Where are we going with it? And it's a constant cycle of cause and effect, and of the idea of utility, that everything must give you something back, that you invest money to create more pleasure or more. Yeah, and I think it's that twist that we need that brings us back into the moment. One of our phrases in Church of Bern is to be here now. And I think that when you make that sacrifice, there is no expectation, when there is what we call forgiving, to give forward without expectation of return, I think that's a key spiritual moment for us. And I think under capitalism, particularly, but I think generally people, I think what Joseph Byers said was that capitalism is just the latest stage in the history of money, and I think that's a really insightful thing to say. And I think it's a particular relationship with money, because it's a relationship where the vast majority of money in the world is dedicated towards making more money. That's absolutely true. So I think in our little corner, if we can persuade people that they need to do the opposite of that, with their money, I think that will send out magical ripples, and I think it's a very good thing for us to do for our own being.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And it's actually quite similar to the pilgrimage. So it's not that you're going to get something from doing the pilgrimage, it's an offering. You're giving the land a massage. You're putting your energy and intention into walking the land, and whatever the intention was, the intention this time was pilgrimage for peace. And so just putting that intention out there for peace, and to think about it and hold it and contemplate it and be with that thing. And it's so interesting what gets thrown at you, and it's not like, oh, here's some gifts. Things come, things shift, huge shifts happen, but also you go through a lot. There's a lot of big things that happen. It's like, oh, you want to look at peace, do you? Okay, well, you try dealing with this. You're like, well, okay, yeah, okay. It's a big thing. I once did something where I set the intention of love. It was for the year. My intention was the mythos of love, and I had some huge, like really full-on awful things happen that year that were to do with love. And it was like the universe listens when you set intentions.
Yeah, you need to be careful, you know what I mean?
I know, definitely.
Yeah.
I need to definitely set slightly less.
The thing about pilgrimages, of course, is they always say it's about the journey, not the destination. And I think that's really key. And I definitely think there's I think that the pilgrimages that I've done and money burning are related through that idea of it not being all about getting to the destination. Otherwise, you should have taken the train. You know what I mean? It's that. Totally, it's about giving that.
Especially with where we ended in Hopton-on-Sea. It was the most hilarious. Like, no one wants to rush to get there. It's the most funny end to a pilgrimage. It's like, oh, huge trailer park. Yeah, pilgrimage is absolutely the journey. And then obviously that's an amazing metaphor for life. It's enjoy the journey, because the ultimate finishing line is death. So it's like, you don't want to rush headlong into that. Let's enjoy the ride. Right, so our third and final card. Let's see when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. the ace of discs. So that basically is money.
Is it? Oh, okay. Well, we've done well there then.
But it's like it's money in its purest form. So I
Ooh.
suppose what are you getting to with this relationship with money? What is the if money was a newborn baby and you birthed the baby of money, what actually is money?
Oh, blimey, now that's a dangerous question to ask me. I can tell you. You must promise to stop me though when
Okay.
if you glaze over. In my view, money is a quantum phenomenon, and I think it's equivalent to the. I think what we call money is actually you call the collapsing of the wave function. It is a movement between determinacy and indeterminacy, or which way around, either way around. And I think I think it's a process that process manifests through the human mind. In my work, I like to create a bit of a distinction. It's not actually massively helpful, but it is at certain points between money and currency. And currency I describe as a psychosexual event, which sounds a bit weird, and it's not actually super helpful because lots of things are psychosexual events. The whole of culture is a psychosexual event. But it does remind you of the sort of the provenance of currency, that without human beings, without our sexual lives, our sexual interactions, without our psychological interactions and the relationship between sex and psyche, currency wouldn't exist. Yeah, that's currency in its rawest ingredients. And I think that's a really helpful thing to understand, because we tend to think of currency as little units of stuff floating about that we can measure and what have you. We think about it in terms of it being a measure. I think the measure comes earlier. I think the measure is basically the most fundamental layer of money. And then we impose this psychosexual, this human part over the top of it. So I think it's an incredibly complicated mystery that is not something we can resolve. I think it's something we need to manage better. And I think about what I do is in terms of I'm not resolving the mystery of money. I'm accepting that it's a mystery, and I'm trying to live my life better with it, trying to change the way I live with it. Now most people, funnily enough, I'm not the only person who describes money as a quantum phenomenon. There are a few people now coming to that idea, because quantum mechanics, I don't know that much about quantum mechanics, and I'm not a mathematician, but does seem to describe money particularly well. A different level. Another way to talk about money, after the philosopher George Simmel, who wrote perhaps the greatest book on money, and his key insight is that money is ambivalent. And it's important to understand that ambivalence doesn't mean it doesn't matter. You don't care about something. It means the simultaneous. It's about contradictory emotions. The simultaneous presence of contradictory emotions. So love and hate. You can love and hate something. That's what being ambivalent means about it. It doesn't mean you don't care about it. It means you either love and hate it, or you have two different reactions, two opposing reactions to it. And that's what money can hold. It can hold those oppositions. And of course, when you start talking about ambivalence and oppositions, not only are you starting to talk about the psychoanalytical view, Jungian, Freudian view of the human mind, but you're also engaging with William Blake, you're engaging with all the greatest literature, because it is about how you hold those oppositions and how you make a life through holding those oppositions. So money is an incredibly amazing phenomena. People think because I burn money, I hate it. I'm absolutely fascinated by money. And I think it is an amazing, and I hate to use the words, because people talk about money as a technology, and money isn't a technology. But if you want to conceive of it in those terms, it's an amazing thing. How it coordinates the entire world to its bidding. We all have to do what money wants. What an amazing thing. So there's all sorts of ways you can think about money. You can think about money in magical ways, as an egregore. But I think the main thing for me is that people, particularly economists, the main thing for me is that people wake up to the fact that this stuff is absolutely amazing and mysterious, and that we need to find a new way of being with it, and not just hand it off to Rachel Reeves and the bankers and people like that. That this stuff has an impact at a very granular level of our lives. And I think you realise that, Jolie, the way you speak about money, you are aware of that. And I think having rituals around money is a very appropriate way to deal with that. We've always had rituals around money. We don't always treat money as something which should beget more money. We stick it in cards to our grandkids. We give it away. We have lots of different relationships with money, most of which are frowned upon, but they're not productive. But when you look at money as a whole, you look at the trillions and trillions of dollars that exist in the world, it's a tiny bit of that isn't treated as something that must be fecund, that must make more of itself. It's a tiny bit, and that needs to grow. That needs to grow, because then we'll achieve a new balance with money in the world. And it will still be an amazing thing, but hopefully it won't destroy us and the planet whilst it does all this amazing stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you know there's an economist who's an Irish guy who's David something? He does a podcast and has written a book. He wrote a book called Money.
Yeah, it's here somewhere. There it is. That guy.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. He's amazing, isn't it? Because it was in that he talks about money being an element, and that is pretty much an element born from humanity. So as soon as you have a group of people bigger than just your nearest family and, tribe, you have to have some way of being able to fill the gap between that person having this and you having that. And how do you figure that out? Because it can't just be based on trust, because you don't know each other well enough. And that it's trust, but it's also that I think the first thing ever written down, so the first kind of human culture recorded is a loan. So since humanity began to be interactive on a more sophisticated scale, we've had to have this thing filling the gap between us, which is this different element of money. And I find that really fascinating, that it's sort of trust. That's what money, and it's even got a promise written on it.
It's got a promise written on it, yes, it has. Yeah, I think I had this year, I was very pleased. I won't talk negatively about his book. I'll talk positively about it, because it was very pleasing that you got an economist saying, actually, money's really important, and it might be more about money than it is about economics. So when I read that, I was like, yes. I think I was going to say to him, I was going to send him an email saying, maybe look at this, maybe look at that. There is a lot of work on those things that you're talking about now, about how money's impact on the human psyche over 2.5 millennia. In fact, more, this thing you're talking about, those tablets, they go back 5,000 years. So it's money's impact on the development of philosophy. Money is like in our DNA. It's impacted how we view the world. It's inescapable, is what I would say, and that's why there are plenty of. He was an Irish guy too, who lived without money for a year or something like that. I'm a bit skeptical about those things, because you can't escape money. It's already there, and you've got to deal with it. You've got to find new ways of dealing with it. That's the key, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I feel like my relationship, it feels like a dance, that I'm in a continual dance with it, because I'm like, if I got in the right place with it, would it mean that it flowed more and I ended up with more money? Or if I got in the right place with it, would I just be okay with not having it? And I keep trying to be in that place. So it's just like this continual dance, and like checking in with myself with the fact that I've lived an amazing life, and I've done all sorts of things, and I've travelled all over the world, and I have crazy multicoloured clothes, and I've got a roof over my head. And yet in my head, I've never had any money. And so it's like, well, you've never had any money, but you've got quite a lot of stuff for someone who's never had any money. Somehow it's flowed through you, even though it's not stuck around for very long. Yeah, so I'm always interested in what's going on with it, because it just seems to have such a massive impact on my life all the time. And it's the other thing that's living here is, I've just said that there's people who are billionaires and millionaires and everything, but no one knows how much money anyone's got. And you were saying, it's a rude thing to talk about, and people are more willing to talk about sex than they are money. And that's the other thing. It's like the most secret there is. And like, you're just guessing. You spend the whole time guessing how much money people's got. And some people who've got no money are completely buying everyone drinks and are really generous. And other people who've got loads of money are being completely tight-fisted. Yep. So the money even flows, it doesn't even flow directly from wherever who's got the biggest pot. So it's just, it's very interesting being here watching it all. The last thing that I'd like to ask you is, do you have a chaos crusade for us?
Yeah, do you know what? I thought about that question before when you've asked it before, and it's really difficult for me to answer it without being completely obvious. Is that my chaos crusade is getting people to burn their money
and money.
and getting people to. My mission really is to think about how I can get people to burn their money and get people to react to money burning. So that is my chaos crusade. Really, I think that. Maybe I'm not naturally a person who likes to aggravate people and get in their faces, but I think possibly I have to be a little bit more like that in what I do. Maybe in the right way, in a creative way. So I've got things like next year I'm planning to do a 10k burn. It's all for charity. So the idea is to get charitable donations and only give them if an equivalent amount of money is burned. And if the money isn't burned, if not enough money's burned, then it doesn't go to charity. So I'm playing around with those ideas, which set up that dissonance in people's minds about it, and provoke their reactions to it, and get people talking about it. Because if they can't burn it, let's get them talking about what it means to burn it. I think people are interested in money.
Yeah, no, totally. And if people are going to burn it who are listening, how, in terms of holding it as a ritual, holding space for it, what, if any tips or anything you'd say about how to go about it?
Absolutely, yeah. What I would say is take it seriously. A little tip I would say is, if it's going to be your first burn, make it. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of money, but make it. You think that's a little bit too much. That's probably the right amount, right there. Get a note and keep it in your pocket, and don't spend it on something. Yeah, so go to the pub with your 20 quid or whatever you're going to burn, and when it comes to you, when you would normally buy a round of drinks with it or whatever, don't just hold back. Keep that £20 in your pocket. Give it a little bit of a life. Yeah, when you come to burn it, please write down the serial number, record it in the record of burn. We have the record of burn, which is the database of all the money burnt. So 7 million quid on it at the moment, which includes obviously the KLF and various historical burns. But yeah, enter it in the record of burn. If I could encourage people to do that, would be great. But it also, not just for Church of Burns purposes, but if you record those details, if you record the serial note number, if you look at the note and really examine the note, it just helps you form an attachment with it. And then when you burn it with a nice candle, do it in what you would consider a ritualistic way, I would say. Yeah, and I think personally, I would say, don't think about it in terms, if I burn this money, then I will get this result. I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the way to do it. The way that I would do it, but to their own. But I think if you can experience it as just a straightforward loss in a ritual way, I think it will. The ritual itself will have its own meaning and its own value. You don't need something beyond that. The ritual is the thing. The journey is the pilgrimage. That's where you're at with it. And I think, for me personally, in my experience, that's the richness of it right there. And sorry, one last little bit. So yeah, as long as keeping that note, I would go somewhere to do it. So make a little go to, if you're on a beautiful island, walk across and go to a beach and do it. Do something like that, where you've put a bit of effort in and you've selected a nice. My best burns have come through selecting a nice little spot to burn and making something, not just the ritual being the tiny little thing that you do with the money and the flame, but the ritual being the whole event around it, where you go and do it, where it's like a couple of hours out of your life to do this thing. That's certainly where I've had amazing experiences, and the kind of your back realigns and you can feel the energy flowing through you. Your feet feel rooted on this great big spinning ball of rock that we're stood on now. So you feel, certainly for me, that's how it's worked, and it's a wonderful experience. But if you go in thinking, I'll have 20 quid's worth of money burning experience, you ain't going to get it.
That was the incredible Reverend Jonathan Harris from the Church of Bern. And I did just have such a visceral reaction to what he was talking about. And just, I loved what he said at the end there. I cannot wait to go to a Church of Bern ceremony ritual experience, when I'm in England next, I will be putting that into the diary. And I will also be practicing some kind of ritual here in Sark just to get the experience flowing, because it's something that feels so right in my body. And yeah, I can't wait. That was such a wonderful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So I don't even know what the words are. It's fascinating to think of money in this way, and it does do something. It's so, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it must be for everybody such a big thing. I mean, it's such a big thing in my life, and I'm sure it is in everybody's. So to look at it, and this is what I love about subverting reality, is these things that are just given rules and given behaviors. Money is not something you burn. You're not burning money. It's even a saying. For us to then just flip it on its head, it's like walking backwards down a high street, or sticking all the furniture to the ceiling or something. It's just behaving in a way that doesn't fit with reality, that highlights that it's all made up, that it is all made up, including our relationship to money. So to subvert it, or to work with it differently and change that energy, is so powerful. And it just feels really freeing. That's the word that's coming through. It feels so freeing. And for me, money is so like a ball and chain. It's confining and restricting, that the thought of just burning it just feels so freeing. So yeah, very excited. What a wonderful conversation. That was amazing. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I shall speak to you again next week. So see you then on.